by conceding, in essence, that that vehicle that was driven by Mr. Pickett caused the death. That's one element. There's evidence of that. We're straightforward. Admit to that. But the element knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of his actions. Knowing. Knowing means something. There's a couple knowings there. Knowingly created a very high risk. Prosecution, I think, speculates to some extent. Oh, when he was driving along behind the school, he stopped. It must have been going through his head, or could have been going through his head, what he was doing. That's speculation. We have here driving, I think the earlier part of the driving at the Red Roof Inn, at the Speedway, then at the Red Roof Inn. It doesn't look like any horrible driving at that point. We've heard testimony about how the drugs kick in half an hour to an hour. It varies depending on the individual, the drugs, the amount of drugs. It's happening along the way. Now, as you're aware, there was no alcohol here. One of the tests showed 0, 0, 0. I think it's probably not too speculative to indicate that most adults, if they're imbibing alcoholic beverages, know you're not supposed to drive. Bad things can happen. Is that the same with ingesting various drugs, some of them prescribed? If I'm taking something voluntarily, knowingly, do I automatically, even if they're intoxicating, does that automatically know I'm creating a risk of great bodily harm or death if I get into a car? We don't have any knowledge. We don't have any facts that Mr. Pickett knew what the side effects of these drugs were. We don't know that. There are no facts. That's speculation. Oh, he must have known. Oh, well, he was driving and understood what was going on. There's no way on earth he couldn't know. If he took these pills and they affected him sufficiently, he didn't know diddly squat. I think one can say that too. That's speculation, but it conforms with the evidence. I don't think these bottles have any of those little circles with the line through them saying don't drive or operate lawnmowers. I see one having to do with what looks like a pregnant woman. Don't take it when you're pregnant, and I don't think he was pregnant. We're not saying he's innocent as a newborn babe. He did things he shouldn't have done that day. But if you look at the verdict form, there's not a box for innocent. There are boxes for charges, lesser offense as to 1 through 5, and not guilty, which essentially is the case hasn't been proved. There's a lot of evidence here. We put it to you based on our system. There's not sufficient evidence to prove Mr. Pickett guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.